Welcome everyone to another Thursday night. We're heading to the end of the month of Shvat, and next week is Rosh Chodesh Adar. It's been quite a day for the whole Jewish people today, with the returns of the hostages who weren't no longer alive, and also the cold weather here. B'ezras Hashem, we should only hear Besoros Tovos, and we should just only hear good things. Just Devorah mentioned an amazing story that happened today, which we see how we're all connected to each other. There was a Russian immigrant to Israel who didn't have a bris milah when he was born. And today there's a Chabad community, I'm not sure Herzliya or Netanya or something, where he at the age of 26 did a bris milah, and they asked him what to name it, because he's getting his Jewish name. He said to give him the name of Ariel Kfir, are named after two Beavis boys, two Beavis children who unfortunately were killed in captivity and were brought back to Israel today. He didn't know them at all, but being a Jew and part of the nation, we all felt this connection, and he felt that should be his Hebrew name, which is bris today, at the age of 26 years old. With that, Hashem should look down upon us with mercy and really bring down the final Geula, Mashiach B'mher B'Yameinu, because Hashem will all be together soon in Yerushalayim. And we should just only know much more happier days. With that, I want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos. B'ezras Hashem, a Shavua Tov ahead, and looking forward to seeing everyone soon. Abba, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Naftali. Taka, on that note, I was going to mention it's something similar, which my wife said that one of the magazines that they send out in English is Hamodia, and there they seem to have a string of articles about Motzei Shabbos, about eating a malava malka, and it's explained that the malava malka is a symbol of hope. Why a symbol of hope? Because Adam and Eve on that Shabbos had eaten from the tree of knowledge, and they had everything. One of the articles mentioned about how they had fire, perhaps more instantly, and it was a warmer fire or whatever. But they came into Adam's mind that you can rub two pieces of wood together and you can get heat also. So he saw that automatically he had become wise, right? And it also says that the Malava Malka is the one we should mention, David Alech, the Taichai Kayam, another in these songs in Piyutim in Hebrew about the Malava Malka that mentions Eliyahu Novi, mentions Eliyahu will come and brings down one of the famous psukim, that there will be a time when everybody will be together and the families will come together and people will respect each other. So it's like a time also of hope. And Israel has been under difficult times at this moment. Every time that they receive people, chatufim, people who have been in imprisonment by the Hamas, that they come starving, looking like they're coming out from Auschwitz. They very sick and very pale, and it's the door of death, and so every time it happens, there's the great happiness, and then after the utter astonishment of how people can be so cruel that for 500 days they can starve people and to give them a hard time, beat them, and then today was perhaps the cherries on the top is when the two young children and mother were found that they were killed, and nobody expected that. One would think that the last vestment of any type of sympathy, of any type of understanding of what a human being is and should be, shows they have nothing. They have absolutely wicked people, and many people came to receive 4 bodies, and it's been very, very down. So it seems that, but we have to look up, because after the eating of the tree of knowledge, so then there's a future that you've got to keep living, and one day everybody will get back into Gan Eden, and we pray that the Rabbanu Shalom, who knows what he's doing and runs the world, will actually bring simcha, and we're looking for that simcha. But a very, very difficult time. At the same time, that we hope and pray that the Rabbanu Shalom will just bring beautiful miracles, bring Eliyahu Novi, bring that it will be only Shalom, and take away Hamas, and anybody who's like them, who like their Molech, that they should be extinguished and shouldn't be they part of this world, not worthy of being this beautiful world. So tonight we actually named what we were going to speak about as kidnapping, because the Torah speaks about kidnapping. So in this week's Parsha, it's chapter 21, verse 17. If you want to look at it, Parshas Mishpatim, chapter 21, verse 17, and there the Torah speaks about kidnapping. And every person kidnaps a person and sells them, and this is what they're doing also. They've kidnapped people, over 100 people. They've kept them in the worst conditions possible, and then they selling them back. That's what they're doing by making Israel free. Other Hamas people who are in the prisons in Eretz Israel. It's a very, very difficult decision that Israel is Rahmani, that they have kindness, that they want to do tzedakah, that they just can't, even if they've been trickling in those who especially are alive. It means a lot to the whole of Klal Yisrael. And please God, there's going to be an end to this difficult time, and please God that there'll be shalom. So talking about kidnapping, so you see what the Torah writes about kidnapping. The Torah says if a person kidnaps someone, umachara, and sells them, his chayv misa, should be put to death. So that's what the Rabbanu Shalom wrote in his Torah. And that Torah is the only book which is from Bereshis. It's the only book, it's the only Bible that is from the very beginning, that we have with the accounts of what happened, and then also it always astounds me, and I'm just speaking it out, that we know that all the kings of Israel, King Saul, King David, all the various kings, and then the building of the temple by King Solomon, and then it lasted for about 500 years plus minus, and then it was destroyed by the Romans, the first Nebuchadnezzar, and then afterwards the Romans came and they destroyed the second temple, which was built in the year 70, and we spoke about it the other week, that there was a Choresh and he was not Jewish, but he felt it should be a temple, and people talk about that. Could be President Trump has the inclination or has certain things about him which is compared to Koresh. And please God, it should be like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. That a goy should be able to do that, because we mentioned last week that even Yitro, he wasn't Jewish at the time that he came to the Jews in the desert. He went back to Megai's family and him himself, and he gave answers, and he gave certain thoughts of how to run the judicial system in Eretz Israel, which Moshe took to Hashem, and it was accepted. See, because Yisro, if he's a person who realized there's a God in this world, and he realized that the God of Israel is the God of the world, and you say he was okay to that. Very interesting that I don't know what happened. Must look a little bit to somebody knows. Rabbi Beryl Wine wrote a lot about the recent history in Israel, but that when the Jews we had the temple and it was destroyed, and Hara Maria, that's the Hara Maria, and then the question: who allowed the Arabs to go and build their mosque on top of that? Was it that nobody was there to be able to stop them? Nobody there was to be able to fight against it. Maybe before, there was just not that mobilization of the Jews at the time, and probably they couldn't go to the United Nations at the time. But that's a Jewish site, the most holiest of holiest sites, and they had the chutzpah to go and do what they did. And people say that a lot of the kids over there, young Arabs, to play soccer up there. I mean, it's a whole controversy if a person's allowed to walk up there, because it has the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash. So it's quite interesting phenomenon that they have their mosque there, or they have their whatever they do, and we don't have it. And who gave them the choice to do it? But there were times where different people were running Eretz Israel at the time. The Crusaders, they came also 10th, 11th centuries, and they wanted to take the Israel away from the Arabs, whoever was running it at those times. So it's a very interesting and difficult historic time. I think if I know someone I'm going to try and find out if I can, what happened at those times. Was there any possibility of trying to stop them? But interesting in this week's Parsha, and when we see the pinnacle of and the hideous face of Hamas this week, and it's all about kidnapping. So we mentioned kidnapping. So it's very interesting that kidnapping in itself is a terrible thing. Throughout the world, to make money, people, there's gangsters who kidnap a child, and we only release the child if people would give a ransom. It's mamish against the Torah, and they should be put to death. The Rabbi Shalom shows us from his words in the Torah how terrible it is to do such a thing. So Rav Sadyagon, the Gaonim lived in the 9th century. So he wrote something, And Rabbi Suchard wrote that if you notice where the Torah speaks about kidnapping, so the verse 16 says a person's not allowed to strike a parent. Verse 17 speaks about kidnapping, and verse 18 is a person's not allowed to curse a parent, chas v'shalom. So he says, why is the posik of kidnapping in between the two verses dealing with kibbud avayim? To honor a parent is certainly not to strike, and to curse is also not to strike in with a mouth. And the truth is, who would do it? Nobody would do such a thing. I mean, it's very unlikely. It's the times in Tanakh you find that some of the kings were absolutely rishoyim, and the father, the son became a good king. And anyway, and it is related in Tanakh. So Rav Suchard says, kidnapping is one of the ways. If a child is kidnapped, taken away from his parents, from his habitat, and he grows up in a different society, doesn't know his family, doesn't know his parents. He lands up in a society where he's living, where they're living, and maybe he's doing business, and maybe becomes a boxer, and he has to he boxes and hits, which is asur if the other side is a parent. Maybe in business, or maybe a person did him wrong, and maybe it was his real father. He didn't know it his real father, and he sort of curses the person for taking him for a ride. So you see that there's you actually see that there's such a possibility. So very interesting is that was learning this with good friend Ivan Siegel, and he said something which is so very pertinent, and something which is really shows how the posik, and one knows it for sure, that such a thing can actually happen. He says that sometimes, unfortunately, parents can't get along with each other, and they get divorced, right? They get divorced. Sometimes the parents have a little bit of seichel, when they don't bring their bad midot, their ways of what they thinking is correct, into the children, and they encourage that the children should see both parents, the mother and the father. But there are cases, and I must tell that I do know of, when it comes across, especially as a rabbi, we're dealing with many families and people where there's an extreme hatred between the two groups, right? That the mother and father can be fighting over money, over to whom the house belongs, and how much this person should get, how much that person should get. It becomes very, very difficult, and it's something they go to law. There's big monies being spent on these things, and for a father or a mother to get access to the kids. When are they allowed to get access? And becomes a really difficult situation. Then maybe one of the parents is so angry at the other parent that she incites the kids to be against them. She says that your mother or your father was never good, and they were never even treated you good, and they didn't provide, or you can't talk to them, and every time the guy wants or the woman wants a Shabbos or wants time with the child, so they fill the child with hatred, so the child doesn't want to go, because sometimes it can be to such an extent that the child can start speaking against his parents, right? That in itself is a curse, that the parent is no good, and he doesn't want to have nothing to do with the parent. And unfortunately, these things happen in families, and it's a terrible thing. So what does it come out? It comes out that one has really kidnapped the child. One of the parents has kidnapped the child from the other parent and filled the child with hatred, that the child could even say things which is certainly not kibbud of aim, certain things which is malicious, um, and maybe everybody knows of perhaps one family or one instance where things are, if not as bad, was very close. So you see what the Torah says: kidnapping, taking away. It's taking the privilege of a person. When we say, like on Yom Kippur, in the Son of Tokef, when also Rosh Hashanah, then we talk about the bad things can happen. One of the worst things can happen is that a person is taken captive by enemies and treated in a terrible way, and they entirely control over the body, and we've seen it over here in its absolute worst form with the Hamas, and so therefore we just have to beg to the Rabbanu Shalom that he should step in, which he does all the time. He runs the world, every B'kol Yom, that every day the world is like recreated. It's Hashem is running the world, and there's many miracles that we see and many miracles we don't see, and we're waiting for the big thing that we think is going to be the final solution, and we pray for them. So that's kidnapping, and that's this week's parsha. And what just goes with it, I'd like to mention two things. One thing is that the whole parsha is really not between man and God, between man and man. So many laws. It starts off about selling a slave, and how a person has to treat a slave, and them damaging other people's goods, and hurting someone, and saying lashon hara, and interest, and taking interest to make it hard for people to carry on without kindness. That is, so that the Torah puts so much. One would think is that the Torah is just a book between man and God. You know what I mean? And everything is between man and God, really, right? But over here, it doesn't say daven 3 times a day and do this and do that. As far as Hashem is concerned, but it says, worry about your neighbor. What about the person? If you make a promise, keep the promise. Don't do things which is incorrect. So that's one interesting general look at the entire parsha, which is quite interesting. But then there's something else, and that is that we say Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So what does the word Shema Yisrael mean? Shema Yisrael is Hear Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, right? So, but the word Shema means more than just hearing. That the word Shema means that and that you understand, you really understand that there's a God in this world, that you realize that the world cannot exist without a God. If you look at the sun, you look at the moon, you look at the earth, which is round, turning around, and in the middle of the atmosphere, they're surrounded by a moon and thousands upon thousands of stars. So who got this all going? So it says Shema Yisrael, that Shema means listen and understand. So in this week's parsha, it says that all Bnei Israel were brought to Har Sinai. So it's like a continuity of last week's parsha. In fact, these three parshas all deal with Matan Torah. Last week's parsha was when the Ten Commandments, and Moshe brought the Ten Commandments. This week's parsha is again the giving of the Torah and Moshe going up to the mountain, and Aaron and his sons and the 70 elders were allowed to go to a certain level, and then Moshe went beyond the cloud, sort of, and he was there for 40 days and 40 nights. But in the leading up to, it says at least once or twice that it says that the people said, "Nase, we will do," but the actual giving of the Torah only when they came and they added the words, which is Naaseh v'nishma, right? Just before Moshe was told to go up to the mountain, it says, "We will do v'nishma," and we will hear. So the word Shema is to hear, is to understand that that we will do the mitzvahs v'nishma, and we will realize that we have to do the mitzvahs, right? Shemiah is not only hearing, but it's a hearing where you take it into your body. It becomes part of you. That it has to be a real Shemiah, a real readiness to actually do the Torah. If a person has that readiness to do the Torah and keep up what he's supposed to do, so then he can do it properly, and he'll be successful. So it's a shame that reading again of these three parshas at this very difficult time in Eretz Yisrael should bring us to a allegiance of we'll do, we'll do, and we'll do. So, and if you don't do, so I didn't do, but I'll try again tomorrow. It has to be. That's not going to work. It has to be that a person is Shema Yisrael, Nishma. We will do, and we will understand, and we'll realize that you can't get through without it. So to just end off with an interesting occasion that we heard that there's many Gedolim, great rabbis, and one of them is one of the Rosh in Ponevezh Yeshiva in Bnei Brak, Rav Beryl Provalsky, and so more elderly man, He's been giving shiurim for many years, and he had a lot of people that came into him. People who weren't not all were Jews, not all were from Haredim. There are many people that thank God that through this whole debacle of what happened in October and 2 years ago, that people are being the mitzvahs, people who never kept Shabbos or keeping Shabbos, people who come from being freed, and they were freed into the hands of Bnei Yisrael, and away from the Hamas. They asked for tefillin. They started Shabbos, that even before they came out, the parents who weren't Shomer Shabbos, they started becoming Shomer Shabbos. You see, there's a great kindling of real Yiddishkeit at this time. So I saw that actually, you hear on the internet, my wife reads me a lot of the interesting articles, and it says that that one of the people that came to the Rosh Hashivas, he says, these are people that, especially those who got out, and they have the opportunity to meet very important people. People want to hear what they went through, trauma, and they said that the way that the Rosh Hashiva Rabbi Pavelski, that he explained to them, him and his wife were there, and there were, I think they said about 500 people coming into the house. And now, the houses are not big, but there were a lot of people that came in, and they heard what was going on. And Rosh Hashiva, you see a Rosh Hashiva person, the older person, his whole mind and body and soul is in Torah. He starts to cry, and he is feeling for those people who are going through the pain of waiting to see if their next of kin got out of the furnace of the Hamas, and those who did, and how we were crying, but really turning to religion. It says that feeling of of concern and being with them, like Hashem says, I'm with you in your tzorah. So the Rosh Hashiva and his wife were with the people in the tzorah, and they cried, and people cried together. Says that it was more striking and more holy and more more great than they went into a president of a country, or went into a White House, or they went into where there was the gathering. But it was a gathering of people who were worried, and Tucker felt this way. But these were the Rosh Hashivas, and what did they say? They said, Davin, he says, make sure that your hearts understand what you're saying, do mitzvahs, practice your Judaism, and in this way that we're going to bring to the Rabbanu Shalom, that he's going to destroy our enemies and help us. And like we say every day, we say it over and over again. I'm personally mentioned over again. He says, "Hamvorach Samo Yisrael B'Shalom." That the Rabbanu Shalom blesses his people with peace, and please God, that's what we're waiting. And like we started off with kidnapping and hurt and people inciting other people to do the wrong things, and we have to do what is correct. We have to understand and accept the Torah, and according to these great Rosh Hashivas, that what's going to bring about the change is going to bring, and new hope will bring about when people take the mitzvahs seriously, do what they're supposed to do, and mitzvah Shem, it will usher in a new era of peace. Thank you. Okay, Naftali, then, if they're listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Shkaya, how are you doing? How's
Very well, thanks.
you all abreast? Everybody doing okay?
Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Thank you.